If you studied the Cold War, you were probably taught it was a global struggle. The United States, the Soviet Union, proxy wars, ideology, influence. But there was one war where neither superpower officially fought. Yet millions paid the price. A war where no American troops landed, no Soviet tanks rolled in, and still the Cold War decided who lived, who starved, and who was ignored. This war didn't happen in Berlin, or Korea, or Vietnam. It happened in Africa. And most of the world remembers it only through one haunting image: starving children with distended bellies. This is the story of Biafra, and how original conflict became a global moral failure. Between 1967 and 1970, a civil war tore through Nigeria. The eastern region declared independence as the Republic of Biafra. What followed was not just a military conflict, but one of the worst humanitarian crises of the 20th century. An estimated 1 to 3 million people died. Not mostly from bullets, from starvation. And here's the first myth we need to dismantle. This was not an ancient tribal war. It was a post-colonial state crisis, born from artificial borders, Cold War geopolitics, and international indifference. Biafra didn't exist in a vacuum. It existed inside a global system that chose stability over survival. At first glance, the world's response seems baffling. The famine was visible. Journalists reported it. Aid organizations sounded the alarm. So why didn't the major powers intervene? Because Biafra sat at an inconvenient intersection. Nigeria was strategically important, oil-rich, politically aligned with Western interests. Britain, the former colonial power, backed the Nigerian federal government. The Soviet Union, seeing an opportunity, did the same. Different reasons, same outcome. Both sides preferred a unified Nigeria, not because unity saves lives, but because fragmentation threatened influence. And once both Cold War camps quietly agreed, silence became policy. This is where the story becomes uncomfortable. The Cold War didn't always need invasions or coups. Sometimes it worked by inaction, by deciding which conflicts mattered and which could burn quietly. The US officially claimed neutrality, but neutrality in practice meant deferring to Britain. No airlift like Berlin, no emergency intervention like Korea. Why? Because intervening risked destabilizing an allied government, setting a precedent for secession, complicating Cold War alliances in Africa. So instead, the conflict was reframed, not as a genocide, not as mass starvation, but as an internal matter. And internal matters in Cold War logic were allowed to run their course. Ironically, Biafra still changed the world, just not politically. It changed it visually. For the first time, television brought famine into Western living rooms. Those images, skeletal children, hollow eyes, became icons of global suffering. They helped give rise to modern humanitarian activism. Organizations like Médecins Sans Frontières trace their origins here. But notice the paradox. The suffering was visible. The response was emotional. Yet the political system that enabled it remained untouched. The world learned how to feel without learning how to act. So why does Biafra matter now? Because it reveals something enduring about global power. The Cold War wasn't just fought with weapons. It was fought with decisions. Decisions about who could receive arms, who could enforce borders, and who could be starved into submission without consequence. After 3 years of fighting, famine, and global awareness, the war did not end with outside intervention. No superpower arrived to stop the suffering. But that doesn't mean they were absent. Weapons continued to flow. Diplomatic cover continued to be granted. Economic pressure continued to shape outcomes. The conflict wasn't ignored, it was managed. Not loudly, not heroically, but effectively enough to preserve the global order. The fighting stopped not because the crisis was resolved, but because the balance of power made one outcome inevitable. Biafra shows us a version of history that rarely makes textbooks, one where the greatest violence comes not from invasion, but from controlled indifference backed by selective involvement. And it forces an uncomfortable realization. The world didn't fail to notice Biafra. It noticed and acted quietly. The final myth is that this was an African tragedy alone. It wasn't. It was a global tragedy, produced by global priorities. Biafra wasn't ignored because it was invisible. It was ignored publicly and managed privately. And that may be the darkest Cold War lesson of all. Some wars are remembered for who fought them. Others are remembered for who controlled the outcome without ever appearing on the battlefield.
Every episode is a new chance to test what you know and, of course, rethink what you thought you knew. Be sure to like, subscribe, and come back next time where we test your knowledge on something entirely different.